The teams who suffered the horrors in round one, Carlton, Fremantle and Port Adelaide. For all the planning and the associated hope, what happens when it all goes so terribly wrong?
I'm not going to sit here and spin, dreams. It's not the way I operate, I tell the truth. The facts were we were beaten badly tonight.
It's not the brand of footy we want to be playing.
Oh, it was pretty disappointing. Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Sack the coach, sack everyone, we're done.
A VFL side, we lost here. Boss has got to go. This is a serious waste of talent.
I've got to be honest, I'm genuinely stunned.
I've never seen a team panic and as flustered as Carlton were from that way. It was one of the worst performances I've seen from a team that has got enough experience out there.
They've got some soul-searching to do, the Blues.
This loss could haunt them later on in the year.
Well, this is what the slow goodbye looks like. Make a decision, you rip the Band-Aid off and you move on. Look at what the Swans have done with John Longmire. There are other ways to still treat the ex-coach or the former coach with respect.
I just asked the question, why? Like, why prolong it for another 12 months?
Round one, it goes up a level and we weren't ready for that.
And then they turn up today and defensively look inept. And he'd be scratching his head thinking, what's happened here? Where are we? Have we got ahead of ourselves as a group? This loss questions everything at your footy club.
You do not want to be soul-searching after one game of footy, but that's the lot of three clubs in particular. So Port Adelaide are right at the forefront of this, Gaz. On our first night together, this was the concern that you aired. What is the dynamic of the coaching succession plan and how does it impact? And you never really know until a team comes out and plays.
Yeah, and the question we asked then was, who's the boss here? Is it the boss for now who the board have already made a decision on and said he's not the boss going forward? Or is it Josh Carr, who's not the boss now but has been anointed by the board? So what go into this game, and all the speculation about how it was going to impact on the footy club was well-founded. So you've got to go, OK, let's see how this plays out. And the response is this. What answer did the players give? They're on the bottom of the ladder with a percentage of 33. That's their answer. So my question is, who's backing Ken? Who's backing Ken right now? The board aren't backing Ken. They're saying, we'll let you coach a year out. Yeah, we've got one more year, Ken, but guess what? We don't see you as the long-term coach. And then you go, OK, well, we're told the players are right behind him. And then, OK, so let you go and back Ken on the MCG against Collingwood, who are coming off a bit of a belting as well. And their answer to all of this speculation is bottom of the ladder, biggest defeat in Ken's tenure, 33%. And all sorts of questions are thrown up. Was he smiling post-game? Yeah, should he be smiling? Well, he probably has been doing that for his whole career. But when you throw this into the melting pot, this coaching succession plan announced before the season even starts, well, they get bigger than they normally would be. So 91-point loss is the response from the playing group. And that, to me, doesn't say that they're backing Ken.
So my fear is that the decision-making of the club has actually stripped Ken of his superpower. And his superpower throughout his whole reign has been his capacity to galvanise his team, to make them classically more than the sum of their parts. Well, on Saturday night, they just look like the parts. And the parts are a bit run down. So once you fracture the unity of that, so we're all in this together, well, we're not really all in this together anymore, the board's already said you're out, it's designed to relieve the pressure and to provide a path forward. I fear that what it's actually done is just strip the coach of his armoury.
And that's not to suggest that he's being anything other than he's always been passionate and loves it and invested in doing all the work Monday to Friday. But this is what it opens the door to, right? I don't know if any of the players were affected by it or all of them were affected by it. But I'm suggesting on the back of the performance that there's a large percentage of them whose mind wandered during that game. The mind wandered, Gerard, during the game, OK, in round one. And that's not to say that, the best players' minds don't wander. They just stay at the contest where they're 5 down, 5 up, whatever the case may be. But there would be someone within that side, and maybe more than one, and maybe if it's a majority, they're in all sorts of trouble, whose mind went to, oh, well, why not Josh is thinking of this, and, I've got to get through Ken, or will they make it, all those issues. And so we need to see a response. And the bottom line is, I'm looking at this Port Adelaide side, and they're the Port nice guys. Dixon's gone. Their hardest man's Butters, who's not playing, and maybe the one you wouldn't want to run into in the alley is Sam Powell-Pepper. Apart from that, I look through that group, they're they're a nice bunch. They look to me like they're a nice bunch of fellas. So who's going to dig in on behalf of Ken and show some sort of response?
So response has been the thing that he's always been able to conjure. So it does sit as a big unanswered question as to what happens next. There's the spiritual and then there's the strategic and the tactical and the way that the game plan unfolded on
Travis
Saturday.
Boak's going to join us tomorrow night. He'd be a great chat because he did give. He kept giving whilst this was all unfolding.
So this pricked your ears.
You know, it's hard to be anything positive around the way we played, other than that we're in transition. We're in a space of playing a slightly different game style, and clearly we've got a lot to learn.
You can't be in transition in your last... Like, you're coming off a prelim. You can't be saying we're taking 6 months of pre-season and we're still in transition and we've got a slightly different game plan, therefore we're still learning it. You can't be. You haven't got that time for a start, Kenny, and you're coming off a prelim. This is a team who are supposed to be in the absolute window. So it was a disaster in every way you look at it.
And a lot... So this is the chosen direction of the management of the club, so they have to own a lot of this. And can't just leave your coach or your coaches swinging in the breeze at the moment.
One game, and this is what happens. It's one game. And we're going to talk about 2 other clubs that, well, one of them's on a coaching contract now, so that's also going to raise plenty of issues. And I'll tell you what, if Michael Voss was in that situation, it'd be a nightmare for him.
All right, the Fremantle side of things. So I was in Geelong on Saturday for a team that is being touted as the time is now and the rise to the top 4 and start to challenge. It was unflattering in the extreme. They didn't meet the absolute basics of competitiveness and being fully dialed in. They played like it was 10:30 in the morning, which on Perth time it was. They wouldn't be very good test cricketers on that front.
No.
But when you don't apply yourself to that minimum standard, then everything else falls apart. Geelong players ran straight past the Fremantle opponents and did as they pleased, really, the longer that the first half went. And there was no cohesion and unity in what they were trying to do. And then it left the defence utterly defenceless and not much was done to try to support them either. So this was given that you spend your whole time counting down to one game, and this was a chance to march into the most difficult terrain in footy and plant your flag. They have been good in Geelong in recent times, so there was no need to fear it. Show us what you got. Gee, they'd want to have more than this.
So they looked like they weren't ready for the season, which, as you said, is mind-blowing, particularly given they've won their last 2 games down there. They rallied for a period of time in the third quarter on the back of midfield presence.
Yep, dominated the centre square, got the entries, and then the kid went crazy.
And short-lived, and then just folded again, which is almost worse. It almost compounds things and makes it worse. So that can't get much worse for them either, the Fremantle Footy Club. And the pressure is absolutely just and reasonable to be placed fairly and squarely at their feet. Now they've got Sydney coming up on the back of 2 losses. So what a week. What a week for Justin Longmuir and the Fremantle Footy Club.
You don't want your first press conference post-game to be we weren't tough enough, and then how do you take that back to the players?
Well, there's only one answer for that, and that is that they smack Sydney right between the eyes. Not literally, but with fierce aggression and all the sort of things that they hope that they got. Because if they don't, then those questions will linger and continue to linger. So 2 under massive pressure already, and that's the game we're in.
I didn't think anyone could be exposed after what Carlton did on Thursday night. I thought everyone can go about their losing and operate under the cover of navy blue darkness.
Has this got away on the back of... You tell me this. I was away. I've caught up with as much as I can. So Fremantle, just lamentable, and then you got Port Adelaide, lamentable. Has this been lost a little bit in the process of just what happened here?
Maybe the first 48 hours until next consequential footy was played. It was a wonder to behold. Like, the way that team froze. So one of the markers in the hard rise of Carlton, and this has been a hard rise, is they would suffer under the threat of consequence. Everything carried such consequence. Michael Voss progressively broke that nexus in the back half of 2023, and by the final series, they played for the possibility, not the consequence. This was regression on Thursday night.
Their last 2 outings, they failed to score in a big final. And that game was over and done with, and that was embarrassing that performed. They're 41 points ahead of a side that we all suspect are going to, are in a huge transition. And the transitional team bullied them into submission. And they looked like they were fearful in the end, and from their inability to execute fundamental stuff. And that's... I still think this is, of all those big results over the weekend, this is the one that resonated with me the most.
Carlton is combustible. It's a combustible community, and Brian Cook talks with a sense of lament around that, is it get too high and too low. So the risk is for a club like Carlton is, what does this do to them? Can it stymie the first 6 weeks of their season, or can they isolate it, shake it off, solve it, and then hope that there aren't severe fault lines in their actual game? But if they can solve the mental side of it, they can get back to pushing. This is training tonight, and Charlie Curnow is there, and that's going to be seen as the panacea. But that's a throwback.
And that's a trap. And that is a trap to come back and, the saviour mentality, the hero mentality that's existed at that football club for a long period of time. Someone will come and fix us. Charlie will come and fix us. And their opponent is absolutely, probably the last team that you want to be playing coming up. So, no, I just think that was enormously disappointing. Kudos to Richmond, and credit to them, and credit to their coach, who was able to get that out of that group when they were staring at the abyss of 41 points. The easiest thing in the world would have been pack up. That speaks of a group that looked at the coach and have got some belief in him. So fantastic to the Richmond Footy Club, but lamentable by Carlton.
Do you think there are deep-seated problems in their game?
Well, until they prove that they're not there. That inability to execute when some heat came their way, it just lingers over them now. That lingers over them until they put together a performance where we all can sit back and look and go, gee, that's the furnace. That's the hottest of hot footballs, and they stood up and they executed, and they didn't double grab. Right now, they're just a fumbly, nervous football side, and that's their reputation on the back of giving up a 41-point lead to this young Richmond side, and the manner in which they did it. Fumble, no, I don't want the footy, turn it over, hand it back, goal the other way. That's your lot to live with until you change it. You can change it against Hawthorn, and Carlton fans, I don't reckon they've got a hell of a lot of faith that it will happen, but this is a long, long season. We say it all the time. Don't knee-jerk. Last week we sat here and said, don't knee-jerk on Collingwood, don't knee-jerk on them. But that is their lot. They've earned that moniker right now of the fumbly, nervous Blues until they can change it.
Yeah, so you've got to go and put it right straight away. And Collingwood's the good reference point. For all that they looked against the Giants, they rectified. So new players all made impact right from the very start. Dan Houston, you referenced on Wednesday night, he came in and transformed them instantly. They didn't look old and slow. They looked dynamic.
Right. So that's it. That is the options you've got as a football club, right? You can take the pressure, take the criticism that came their way, and it was all justified, don't worry. And the question marks around where they sat in the age bracket, no one, or you should never have been writing them off, but those questions were raised because of the way they got beaten. And your options are to live with that for the next however long, or fix it. And they fixed it. So there's your lesson and learnings for Carlton, for Port Adelaide and for Fremantle. Fix it, and then we'll sit here, or whoever will be here next week, and you go, OK, it's a long year. They were ordinary and awful, but they've squared it up.